going to talk today is what do you do when you're lost? Some of you may be here this morning because you're feeling a little lost in your life. If you are, I honor you for being here, your courage for being here, because it takes courage to just really recognize and be in that energy of being lost. I put out this question on Facebook, what do you do when you're lost? My favorite answer was Jack's Google Maps. But there were some ones that, I mean, they were all so fantastic and wonderful. You can look on my Facebook page to read the responses. But there were some that made me a little uncomfortable. Just a few, just a few. And the reason why they made me uncomfortable is because it felt like there was almost a disconnect from the actual experience of being lost. Sort of like, well, you're never really lost. If you just read a few spiritual books, you'll remember that God is all there is, and you're always home in God, and we're always just fine. And so as soon as you remember that, you're fine, because there's no way to be lost when you remember God is all there is. That's something that I would call spiritual bypass. Because if we take everything to the absolute, God is all there is, and we're not even all, we're temporary. We're only here on this earth. The earth is temporary. Everything is temporary. In the absolute, everything is fine. But as soon as we come into form, we're in the middle of all these different experiences, these human experiences. As Desjardins said, we are spiritual beings having a human experience, but we are having a human experience. And so part of our journey is what we call transcend and include, to go beyond, but also include the entire human experience. That's how we make heaven on earth. We don't exclude the human experience. So yes, in the ultimate, we're always already fine, but there is this feeling of being lost. I also absolutely believe in embracing being lost, but I don't want to give the idea that being lost feels good. Being lost means when we're going through those experiences of being lost, I'm not just talking about like for a day, you're just feeling a little bit lost or disoriented for a day. I mean like there's something going on in your life, and it's like there's an earthquake in your life and you're disoriented. There's a feeling of disconnection. There's a directionless. You don't know, lost is a specific word. There's a directionless. You don't even know what direction to take. You don't even know where to turn to get help because you don't know where you are. And you don't know who to reach out to. You're in the boat, right? You're in the boat out in the water, and the waves are getting a little stormy. Suddenly it's dark. The clouds are covering any moon or stars, and the lighthouse, for whatever reason, gets covered up. You can't see the lighthouse. That's scary. Our hearts go a little bit faster. There's something in the very beginning of the song that you just sang, Jack, that was talking about your heart gets a little faster as you're going a little deeper because you're in the unknown now. Where do I go? Where do I turn? I can't see anything. It is a very uncomfortable and can be scary experience. Many people on the Facebook page, I would say the number one answer, the winner was, be still, meditate, turn within. And that absolutely is an incredible response to being lost. And it's hard. I mean, if you're in a ship that's rocking and you can't see, to try to sit still, your mind going, and it's very hard to be still in the midst of those. We're trying to find something to hold on to because we don't know where we are. There's that disorientation, and we can't see, and we're reaching out, and it's reaching out in the dark. But it is true, it's an opportunity for growth. As one of my friends said many years ago, I'm in the fog, I'm in the darn fog again. And it was a beautiful sunny day, so I didn't know what she meant. I said, what do you mean? And I'll edit it because I'm up here. And she said, the fog, another flipping opportunity for growth. Because that's what it is. And I loved it, the annoyance that she had with it, because it is an opportunity for growth, but that doesn't mean it's fun. It can be. It depends where we are in that lost. So, in that lost energy. So when we're lost, we start to be still. And again, I'm not talking about, a lot of people were sort of referring that if I'm just still for like an hour or two, I'll be reoriented and I'll be fine. But when things, like if you've been in a 20-year marriage and it's over, it's disorienting. Where am I? One person responded, she has recently lost her daughter. After being a mother for 27 years, and beyond just the grief, I want to talk about that too. with loss, at the initial point of that loss, there's grief. And we need to grieve. Whatever it is that we've just lost, that grounding, the shore that we've been holding on to, grief is an incredibly needed and appropriate response. I was just reading this morning Prince Harry. He's talking a lot more about his mother, her 20th anniversary, Princess Diana's anniversary. And he said he never mourned her. He said he spent 20 years and he kept getting into trouble and doing these because he never let himself feel. And so now he's in therapy and he's very open about it and talking about the importance of mental health, but of the grieving process. So I want to really affirm that grieving process is part of loss. So we're not trying to skip over the grieving. And it can happen if you lose a career or a job or you move. I mean, there's so many ways that we get lost. And we've done so much work that suddenly we find that people that we're around no longer mirror what's going on inside of us. And so it feels like we have to change all our relationships, not out of, because anything bad has happened, it's because we've changed so much. So these are not, when I say lost, this isn't something that just a day of meditation is going to fix. You know, we want to continue to return to that stillness, to listen, and to find a way to be in that energy of lostness that might last we never know. That's part of being lost, is we don't know how long it's going to last. And it can be a beautiful time of adventure once we get past the grieving part. That as we heard in the reading today, that so many incredible things happen in that lost period because we become immensely teachable. We are now open because we don't know. Every mystical path talks about humility as an essential part of the mystical path, because as we heard in the reading today, there's this vastness of mystery that we just don't know about. And when we're going along and everything is great and we're on the shoreline, we know where everything is and everything feels in control, and we're sailing along until one day we can't see the lighthouse, and then we're awake. Suddenly we sense everything, we feel everything, we're open, we're looking around because I don't know where I am and I don't know what to do. And so that's incredibly humbling. There's no way to have arrogance in that point. I can't tell anybody anything because I don't know. And so suddenly I'm open. And this is when we start reading new books that we might not have read before. People might offer us, maybe you'll take this, and then you'll take classes, and you'll find a spiritual community that fits you. You'll work, maybe trying to do jobs. You'll learn new skills. So we become intensely open and available to becoming a new person. And that's the beauty of the new being lost, is this new person that we become. That when we get lost, we lose what was, so we can become something more. And this is the part of the process of our growth, of our evolution, is losing so we can become more. And this can be fun. And so I want us to look at there's different levels. So there's this place of I'm on an adventure. I'm starting my life new with a new job, a new career. I'm starting in a new location. I'm in a new relationship. I have you went through a physical challenge and now I've got a new body. It can be fun and adventurous. But I want to go one more level than that. Because in some way we still have a little bit of control. We're choosing our books, we're taking our classes. We don't know which direction we're taking, but we're open and we're learning and we're connecting with people as we're learning all these new ways of being. But then there's something which I call forced stillness. And that's just going at one level deeper. And what that means is you've tried everything. You've read all these different books. You've had all these wonderful conversations and people that you've reached out to and talked to, and they've given you help and support. And you've done all these things, and you're still empty. You're still lost. You still can't find your way. Have you all had that experience where even when you've done everything, that you still don't know where you are, you still don't know what you want, you don't know what direction to take? So I'm going to use it in a very tangible way, directional way. I've talked before about using my affirmations to go to acting school, being there for exactly one semester and realizing I am so not an actress. And I left, and then I sort of just jump into, now I'm in New Thought. But that jump was part of my loss period. I went back, and I'm very grateful at that point I could stay with my dad, and I didn't have to worry about making money because I was very lost. It wasn't just that 1 month of being lost, what am I going to do to make money? I spent my entire college career not clear on what it is I wanted to do. I had so many different majors I could do this, or I could be an English major, a sociology major, or well, I don't know, I had all sorts of majors, because nothing was saying this is it. You know, it's great when you know this is it and you can move forward on it, but I had no this is it. And so I ultimately landed in psychology because I was very curious as to why I was so different. But I loved learning about psychology, but it wasn't a passion. And I knew it, but I didn't know what else to do. So I was a psychology major, and then that's when I hit on acting. Well, that looks like something you could be passionate about. So I gave myself to that for a very brief period of time. But what happened is when that was clear that wasn't it, I had nothing left. I had spent years trying to figure out what my passion was, and I held on to acting because I was hoping that would be it, and it wasn't it, and I had nothing. And so I literally, when I was at my dad's house for that month, actually I was there longer, but for this specific month, I slept every day. I went into what one might call a depression. I am grateful that years before I had been seeing a therapist, and I asked him, am I depressed? And he said, no, you still don't know where you belong, so you go through these existential crises of what your meaning of, what your life is about, which is different than depression. And that's what it was. I wasn't feeling sad about my self-esteem at that point. I just didn't feel like I belonged anywhere. And that's what lost is. I have nowhere where I belong. I have nothing to connect to, and I see all my friends, and they seem to have careers, and they're moving towards things, so there's also that feeling like everybody else is. That happens a lot when we're lost. Everyone else is found, and I'm the only one who's lost. So I just slept, and I slept some more. I would get up right when my dad would get home, because I didn't want him to ask me any questions. Because I didn't have anything to say. I didn't have anything to talk about, and I didn't have any movement. But there was something that was different about this period than all those years in college. And this is what I mean about the forced stillness. I had already talked to 1 million people, and I was always taking classes. I was always learning new stuff. I had tried all these different majors. I had already filled my head with my own answers, and acting was one of those answers. By the time I got to this month, I had nothing. I wasn't trying to answer the question anymore. I was just asking the question without any answer. I was just staying in that lost state. And you'll see that many people, as their spiritual teachers, as they're talking about being lost, they talk about just be present with being lost and stop trying to fix it. Just be lost. And so in that period, I was given a credible grace period where I just allowed myself to be lost, and I didn't try to fix it or try to find the perfect job. But I did stay in the question all day long, every day, God, what do you want me to do? Because now I recognize, and that was, to me, very significant, saying God, because up until now I was trying to figure it out with my own mind. So I was turning to something that was greater than both my conscious and subconscious mind, because our subconscious is hidden things, but it's hidden things of what we know humanly. The transcendent is beyond anything I've ever considered. God, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? And I didn't try to answer it. My mind wasn't going 1,000,000 miles a minute anymore. I wasn't spinning around trying to figure out how to get out of this lost situation. I was forced stillness. I was done. And then one day, it was literally almost a month, I was sitting on the floor leaning against bed and just had one of those wonderful, non-ordinary light experiences where I was just in pure light. I was at the Santa Anita Church, which was a New Thought church I visited a couple times when I was in acting school, and I was there. And it was the first time everything resonated. I knew that I knew that I knew. This is where I belong. This is who I am. There was space for that to come in because I wasn't answering the questions with my own, with everything that I knew. There had never been space before. I was always trying to answer the question. And interestingly, when I was in college, I never thought of theology as a major. It literally had nothing to do with the rest of my life. God was something I did very privately, my whole life with my friends, my brothers, my parents. It had nothing to do with God. So it never even occurred to me. It was so completely out of my realm of thought that it took total being lost, totally empty, not trying to use everything that I thought I knew about life or myself or what other people, no one ever mentioned to me when I asked other people what they thought I should do. No one ever said anything along the religious or spiritual lines because I never talked about it. So it's not something that was aware. It would have never come externally, but I had to be lost. So when you feel those ways, sometimes I love reaching out to people. I love finding classes. But then knowing yourself when those times where you just let yourself be in whatever that presence is. Be lost. And because it's not fun, sometimes we have to be forced. So I saw, yesterday I saw a movie again that I've seen before that always moves me because I think it's such a great metaphor for our journey. And it's the movie Hurricane about Reuben Hurricane Carter. Has anyone seen that movie with Denzel Washington? Yeah. So Reuben Hurricane Carter had a troubled childhood, was incarcerated as a young boy for many years, got out, sort of in and out of incarceration. Through this, there's a lot of anger. So he was, and I also want to say this, a lot of times when this loss pattern starts when we're children, because we don't know, we have the feeling we don't quite fit into what's going on in our life growing up. It doesn't make sense to us, so we feel a little disoriented, and that carries on often into our adulthood. So for whatever his life circumstances were, he was a lost child, basically then raised in the criminal justice system, which is not a great place to be raised. So there's a lot of rage and anger in him, but he uses it. He's a very sharp and focused mind. He focuses it and wants his body to become a machine. He becomes a boxer, and he becomes a great welterweight boxer. At which point, he gets arrested for murder and tried and convicted, put in jail. Now, there's many people who felt, and I'm not going to get into innocent or guilty, because that misses the whole point. The fact is whether he was innocent or guilty, he was full of anger, but he also was very clear he was free in his mind. So he worked in his cell. He became very disciplined. He wouldn't do anything the rest of the prison was doing. He created his own reality. He wouldn't leave his cell. He wouldn't even wear the clothes the other prison mates. He was willing to go in solitary confinement for 90 days to insist that he wore something different than what all the other prisoners were wearing. He got his own food, not from the cafeteria. He just created this discipline, working on his body, and just he was determined in working on his case, mentally, reading a lot of books, started reading a lot of philosophy. And from that place, people came to his support to help free him and say that he was unjustly judged. Accused, and that he was in prison. He was an innocent man in prison, so there were big rallies. Bob Dylan wrote the song Hurricane, great song. You had Ellen Burstyn, Muhammad Ali, these rallies to set him free. And all of this, and he got a second trial, and again, he was found guilty again, went for appeal. That was denied. And so everyone went away. The celebrities went away, the rallies went away, and he was left with himself, forced silence. When he got in prison, he had to get out. But now he did everything he possibly could. He reached out. He got help. He got a lot of help, a lot of money, great lawyers. None of it worked. None of it worked. Have you ever been in that situation? I asked that before, where nothing you do works. So he forced silence. He gave up. He was in it. Well, there was nowhere to go. There was no direction. So he was in his cell, in the silence. And where that light comes from is different for everybody. I don't think he expected to get the light where he got it from. He got a letter from a 17-year-old boy who had just learned how to read and write the year before. Some Canadians had taken him. He was a young African-American in New York with alcoholic parents, never learned to read or write. They recognized his potential, asked him to come up to Canada with him, and educated him. And then one of the first books he read was Reuben Hurricane Carter's book that he had written while in prison. And he was so moved by it, he wrote him a letter. And Reuben Hurricane Carter was so moved by it, and then his name is Lesra Martin. And Lesra said, "Can I come visit you?" And he visited him. And what Reuben Hurricane Carter wrote back, he said, "I was in such darkness, and suddenly, just sitting there with you, you were just this ray of light. I found light again in my world because you came and sat with me and believed in me and showed me love. I didn't know what that was like. I had forgotten what that light was like. And so revitalized, and then the Canadians began to help from a distance and working more on the case, and that went on for a while, and then it fell apart again. No hope. So he writes a letter to Lesra and the Canadians. I'm so grateful for your love. I'm so grateful, but there's no hope. There's nothing going on, and I just can't do the time. I don't have it in me. It's done. I'm done. So what did? They moved their entire life to be near the prison and say, we're not leaving here until you're free. We're not leaving until you're free. That's what light does for each other. That's what we do for each other. When we hold the light and say, I'm here forever. I will not move until you are set free. I'm already free, and I'm going to help set you free. And I'm not leaving until you can come free. And that's exactly what happened. Through their constant work, they found a way. They passed by the New Jersey judges where they kept convicting and went federal. And they found him not guilty. There's this beautiful moment in the movie where Reuben Kane Carter, played by Denzel Washington, is in his cell. They're waiting to hear the judge's verdict. He's talking to Lesra Martin. And he said, Lesra, the name Lesra is short for Lazarus, which means he who is raised from the dead. He said, Reuben is behold a son. So if you put our two names together, it's behold a son who is raised from the dead. Isn't that amazing? Incredibly, God is amazing. And he said, hate put me in this prison, but love's going to bust me out. And that's why I say the innocence or the guilt, because whatever, he's right. Whether the innocence or guilt, he still had that rage. He was imprisoned by that rage. We are imprisoned by our limited ideas about who we are. That's why we get lost, because our ideas are so small about ourselves that if this loving presence wants to break us free, it has to explode us out of our old ideas. And that's where that lost period comes. If Lesra, who is about raising from the dead, had come when all those rallies were happening, and Muhammad Ali was there, and Ellen Burstyn, Reuben Hart King wouldn't even noticed him. He's like a 17-year-old boy who's barely literate, who just learned how to read. He wouldn't have paid attention to this little light of love. He wouldn't have seen it. He was too busy trying to set himself free from all his anger and rage. He's trying to use his anger and rage to get him out of the prison. We're trying to use our ignorance to get out of our prison. We try to get out of our being lost by using all the old techniques that we've used before. Well, this is what worked before. This is who I've done before. These are the jobs I've done before. These are the type of relationships I've been in before. And we keep trying to go back to what we knew because we're so determined to get out of this lost situation, that place where we feel out of control, where we don't know where we are. And it's not until we just let all of that go. One of the quotes in the reading today was, you have to lose the world in order to find your soul. He had to let go to find that little light that was Lesra. That wasn't a great, rich, brilliant lawyer or a rich celebrity or money or people. It was this young boy who was this lighthouse for him. We have to let go. We don't have to. We can make that choice. When we're lost, if it's not, we have to pay attention to our intuition. Is this a time just to learn new things? Is that type of loss, new relationships? Or is there something that we can die to a little bit more so this new life can be birthed? And we are not in control. Life is full of surprises. If we had to look back at our life, did we plan our life to be the way it is today? Did we think 20 years ago, this is what we would be doing and thinking and feeling 20 years from now? We're not in control. There's something, and that's love. Hate put us in here. Ignorance put us in this small world. Love is going to set us free. When we're lost, we know and can hold on to that it's going to lead us to greater freedom than we've ever imagined. It's going to be that thing that finds our soul. And I'm just saying this for all of us because I don't know where you are on your journey. You might not be in this place now. I know it would have been nice for me to hear this at the time, so I'm going to say this for anyone who was in the place I was. Since that period of being in the New Thought journey, I've had different times of being lost, but there was one period that went on quite a bit of time, several years, where I went through the dark night of the soul. It was the hardest period of my life. But I continued to do the spiritual practices. I knew that no matter what, even though I couldn't feel it, even though they all felt dry and empty, I just kept doing them because I knew the lighthouse was there, even though I couldn't see the light. I kept giving myself to it because I knew on the other side there was something greater and more beautiful that it was guiding and leading me to. If you're any place in that place of lost, sometimes we don't know when it's end. Nobody can guarantee you when that's going to end. It could be just a month, it could be just a day, it could be just a month, or it might go on for quite some time. But what are you committed to? It goes back to what I was talking about last week. What are you really committed to? Those experiences shifted for me when I really found out what I was committed to. So no matter whether I was in the density of the darkness, whether you're in deep sadness, you're lost, you're in jealousy, you're in anger, you're in rage, you're in depression, you just can't move, you can't get up, you're in hopelessness, helplessness, powerlessness, whatever that is, if you know what you believe, if you know what you're committed to, then that's always going to be your light. Whether you feel it or not, we give ourselves to that. No matter how lost we are, no matter how much we are in the dark, we hold on to that one thing and we give ourselves to it over and over. God, what do you want from me? God, what do you want from me? However long it takes. And we will find our soul. We will become that place of freedom. And we will be that lighthouse of freedom. Not only in our own life, but then we get to be that lighthouse for other people. And what a gift that is. Y'all with me? Let's pray. So in this moment, we recognize that we are committed as a community. That we are not a community to be flashy. We are not a community to impress, first and foremost. We are a community that is here to know and love God with our whole heart, body, mind, and soul. Whatever that God word for you is, the beloved, the thing itself, divine love, intelligence of the universe, spirit, whatever that word is, because we know it's beyond any words or concepts, that transcendent presence that breathes us even now, that is breathing us, that is feeling itself into every moment in time and space through our beautiful cells and the nerve endings and our skin and our beautiful bodies, through our emotions and our wonderful thoughts. It is the source of everything that we are, and we give ourselves to that source with everything that we are. As a community, we collectively are here to sing our love, our gratitude, our joy, our trust, our complete and total trust that this presence is infinitely loving, infinitely good beyond our wildest human imagination. And it is alive and awake as each and every one of us right here and right now. And even as we wake up and feel and know this light and love that is our life on every level and dimension of our being, in all aspects of who we are, the conscious and the unconscious, we become these beautiful, radiant lighthouses of truth, of joy, of wisdom, of creativity, of abundance, of beauty, of love beyond our wildest imagination for every person who comes across our path. We are that light here and now, always and forever. We shine, and we shine. And we shine in the midst of the imperfection of our human self. We shine no matter what is happening, whether we feel we are lost, when we are going through those lost experiences that are scary, we shine. That light is still there. We can't see it, but it's there. And through all those wonderful times where we know that we're in the flow, there's only one power, there's only one presence. It is who we are. And it is from this and as this light of knowing who and what we are, we bless those people in our life who need this light today, this very day. There are so many people in our own individual lives that need this light. And so we hold them. We are willing to be the lighthouses for the people who need our light, that light that we shine as we love that source and allow that source to pour through us. We hold Cher's beautiful daughter Jessica in perfect health. She is health even now on every level and dimension of her being. Nothing can limit this health. As we know this for Jessica, we know this for John, Diane's wonderful brother. He went through a motorcycle accident yesterday. We are praying for his left foot to be healed and that he is able to keep his left foot. And we know that prayer changes things. We know that prayer sees the truth, that behind all the crushed bones is the wholeness and the perfection of pure spirit, the power and the beauty of spirit. And we are activating the truth, this one power to be activated into form through and as all the bones and the tendons and the ligaments of John's foot, especially his left foot. That there is a healing there that we can't even explain, and yet it is absolutely explainable in, through, and as this divine presence called God. That although doctors and technicians and nurses are the hands of God, the wisdom of God, the brilliance of God working through this now, and we celebrate and give thanks for all those other people that we have in our life who are calling forth physical healing, emotional healing, mental healing. And so I invite us now, if you are willing, you can whisper, you don't have to say it out loud. Say these people whose names you're holding in prayer, say them out loud into this wonderful consciousness of light. We are the place of light, of healing, of wisdom, of truth, and of freedom. I am so grateful for the light and life of God as each and every one of us here today. I am so grateful that we go out into the world as healers because we know the healer, the one great healer, the source of all healing. And knowing that, we know everything. And knowing that, we know of ourselves we are nothing. And it is from that place healing is happening everywhere we go this week, every community we walk into, any situation, we are that wonderful healing energy. Any person or name that crosses our mind or awareness, they are blessed by crossing the consciousness of our light and our love. Healing is happening even now. Right here, right now, there is healing. I surrender into this awareness. I let it go in complete gratitude for the love of God that is responding even now in all ways to our prayers. It sees and knows and feels our heart's deepest desires and is activated, alive and awake in form as it is in heaven. Thank you, God. In deep and abiding peace now, I just completely release this word and I let it be. And I invite us all to say together, and so it is.
And so it is, and so it is, and so it is, amen. 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 So